We're giving it all away, away. We're giving it all to go away.
You know, when people come in for spiritual emphasis week, you get a couple guys come in, they're involved in the ministry, man, you kind of get this impression, here come a couple holy men, here come a couple, guys from the Bible or whatever, man, and I'll tell you what, Rich Gars and I, we come in here as people just like you, man, and the only holiness we have is from him above. He's the Holy One. And we depend on him, and we live for him, and that's how we live our lives. It's not us that's holy. It's him that's holy. So I want to, yesterday Rich talked to you guys about how you live your lives, what you're going to do, choices you make. And what I'm going to do today is talk about, again, I'll just back up for a second. Rich said yesterday he was talking about people doing drugs and alcohol, man, going to prison, murder, rape, things like that, and I don't know about you guys in here, but I'm thinking, he's in the wrong school. This is Williamsburg Christian. Are you kidding me, man? Talking about that stuff at Williamsburg Christian, man? What do they say about Williamsburg Christian down in Newtown? Man, what a bunch of nerds that go over there, Bunch of God-fearing nerds, man. No, I'm telling you, man, that what he talked about is something everybody in this room needs to think about. So I don't know if any of you know who I am. I know a few have been waiting for the rest of my story from last year, right? You've been yelling at me about that for a year. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about who I am. There's a verse in the Bible, Galatians 2:20, that says, I have been crucified with Christ and I no longer live. The life I live through who? Anybody know? The Son of God, right? So, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live. So what does that mean? I'm telling you guys, I no longer live. What I'm going to talk to you about for a few minutes is the guy that's dead, who he used to be. So does anybody in here, raise your hand if you know what I do for a living? The lady in the back, what's your name, ma'am? Miss Martin? Mrs. Martin? That's right. She knows what I do. But the rest of you don't know what I do. I'm not going to tell you what I do yet, but I'll tell you what I did. So when I was in high school, just like you guys, there were people that would come into the school and talk like this, and I got to tell you, man, the first thing I'd do is I would sit down and I'd say, if somebody came in and it was a woman and she was speaking, she was sharing her testimony or something, the first thing I'd say is, you're a woman, I'm a man, I can't relate to you, I'm not listening. If somebody came in and they were black, I'd say, you're black, I'm white, we're different, I'm not listening. If somebody old came in, I'd say, you're old, I'm young, we're different, I'm not listening. You guys getting the point? I didn't listen to anybody. But what I want to talk to you, when I talk to you today, is clear your minds and don't look at the differences, man. Ask yourself if something that I say hits home, if something that I say has meaning in your life. The way I used to live, the man I was before I knew Jesus, if you can relate to that in any way. So I'll tell you, I grew up in a family, there were 5 kids. Some of you know this because I talked a little bit about this. We had 5 kids. All 5 of us were born before my mom was 21 in a span of 6 years. The woman was busy, right? And I'm telling you that when you have a young kid like that with 5 kids, and some of you can relate to this, it was like kids raising kids, And I had no real guidance. I kind of did what I wanted. We kind of set the theme for this week as being pathfinders. And when I was a kid, I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, what am I going to be when I'm older? What am I going to be? Am I going to school? Am I going to be a doctor? Am I going to be a lawyer? Am I going to be a teacher like some of my family members were? Was I going to be an athlete, which is what I really wanted to be? A few people in here, raise your hand if you want to be a professional athlete or at least making a living doing something with athletics. We've got a few people, right? That's what I wanted to do. And I'll tell you, I set my sights on those things. And when I was going to school, I hated school. Absolutely hated school. Didn't listen to anything, man. Couldn't comprehend it. struggled in there. And I see some of these kids who just, any kids in this, any kids here, and some of you are looking at me like this, right? I'm saying, you ever look at some of them kids that just make school easy? They drive you nuts. I mean, straight A's every year, man, 4.0, and they just make it, they're smiling all the time, you know? And you're struggling, man. You're struggling just to keep a C average going. That was me, except I was struggling to keep a D average going, right? I'm telling you, it was tough. School was tough for me. And I'd sit in the class and I'd listen, and I didn't really feel connected, but I figured, man, soon enough, it would all come together. Because I see people, man, they go through life and things come together, and that's what I thought would happen with me. I excelled in athletics. You two guys over there, you there, right? I excelled in athletics, loved basketball and football. Scored 51 points in a game in high school, man, came away and said, you know, I got a future in this. The sky was, after that game, man, the sky was the limit. I had all kinds of visions. Football, same thing, man. I had visions of what I was going to be. But I didn't really have anything to anchor me, man. Remember what I told you about my home? I would go home, man. It was crazy back there. It was crazy. My father, man, drug addict. You know, my mom was working 2 jobs to pay for him taking all the money and being a drug addict. And then she started getting involved with drugs as well. And again, man, this is how I'm living my life. At 17, man, they both split up and went in different directions, man. I stayed in a car my junior year of high school. I would go to the gym in the morning, take a shower, work out, go to school like nobody knew what was going on. I'd get done school, I'd go back, hang out at the gym, go to my girlfriend's house, whatever. So that's kind of the way I grew up. But I kept thinking, it's all going to come together, man. I'm not too worried about it. And people would come in like Rich did yesterday, and he'd talk about drugs and alcohol, and I'd think, you know, yeah, I drink a little bit, man. I party with my friends a little bit, but no big deal. So my senior year, all of a sudden people were telling me I'm a man and I could start making decisions. And, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, man, as soon as this basketball season's over, I'm quitting school. I brainstorm. I'm quitting school, man. And that's what I did. I quit school. And when I got out of school, I said, I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to work down at the supermarket, man. $4.50 an hour. $4.50 an hour, man. I'll make a living. I'm going to get a wife, kids, man, and I'm going to work at the supermarket, take care of my woman, you know. But I'll tell you what, it didn't work out that way. I quit school. Rich was talking about who you hang out with. Well, I hung out with a bunch of athletes, man, who were just like me. They didn't really have a direction. They didn't really have nowhere to go. And all we did, man, was play ball, chase things. And I started dabbling in drinking and doing drugs and stuff like that. Very short period of time, I was completely lost as a man. But I'm telling you, I kept fooling myself. I kept thinking one day, just like I did in high school, one day something's going to change, man. It's going to come together and things are going to be all right. You know? So I met a girl. She was, what did Rich tell me when he met her, man? He said, I outkicked my coverage, man. Right, he's a football player, man. I met a woman who was just an awesome, awesome lady. And I was able to convince her that I had a future. So as soon as I thought she'd say yes, I asked her to marry me. We got married, and I figured, okay, there it is, man. You get married, you have kids. Here it's starting to come together. I'm telling you, the day after we got married, man, she was at home, and I was out running around with the boys again, doing drugs, drinking. Didn't work, didn't want to work, didn't, you know, just was looking for something but didn't know what it was, man. I was empty. Now, this is crazy, right? You guys are looking at me. I come in here, right? That's not how I pictured him. I didn't picture this guy like this. This went on for 10 years. I'll tell you another moment, man. I talked to you guys about this last year. I had a baby boy, and I'm telling you, man, a baby boy, right? We all want boys when we have kids, don't we? Right? We want boys. I was in the hospital, man. It's a boy. I got a boy. You know? So I got a wife. I've got a boy, and this was going to change me. This is going to change me. It's going to make me be the man I dreamed I wanted to be. But it didn't, man. The day after he was born, I didn't come home the day after he was born, because I was out running with the boys all night. hanging out. I remember coming back, man, in the hospital. She's got the little boy there crying. So I just kind of abandoned her, man. That's how I lived my life. But I kept thinking, it's going to come together, man. This is just what people go through. And you're saying, how does that happen, man? That's not going to happen to any of you. It won't happen to any of you. I don't know. There was a guy I played ball with when I was young, 6'4", 270 pounds. He could throw a football 80 yards in the air. He was one of the best basketball players in South Jersey. Right? This guy was a specimen, smart, had a future. Everybody talked about him in New Jersey. Everybody talked about him. When I became, this is coming to fast forward just for a second, when I became a Christian, I wanted to find him and talk to him, man, because we lived a life together that was pretty bad. And when I finally got a hold of him, they said he was living in Colorado. I got his number, and about a week after I contacted him, just say, hey, man, how you doing? They found that 6'3", 270-pound man dead on the floor from a crack overdose. He had hopes. He had plans. He had a future. So anyway, man, I ruined everything in my life. Everything in my life. I didn't have much. I ruined everything in my life. I have a wife, 2 kids. I'm going to tell you a little bit something on Thursday, but I want to kind of get to the point here, man. Brokenness. You hear that song they were playing? Brokenness. I was broken, man. I had nothing. Nothing. I had 2 little boys that would look at me and say, Dad, you guys got parents? Maybe there's people in here that got parents where you're like, Dad, where you at? You know, that's what my boys were doing to me. Dad, where you at? I had a wife who loved me, man, who looked at me and said, what are you doing to me? I was a broken man. And all of a sudden, I'm 30 years old, and I'm going, I got no path. I don't know how to work a real job. I knew how to bang nails and frame houses and stuff like that. It's a good, wholesome job, man, but I couldn't keep one. And I'll tell you, I was broken. And I'm not going to give you all the circumstances, man, but I was somebody I met accidentally. I will tell you, man, 80-year-old woman. I was doing work at her house, 80-year-old woman, man. There was a Bible on the table. And I said, there was about 4 Bibles on the table. So you read the Bible? She goes, I do. You want to study with me tomorrow afternoon when you come over to work, man? We'll study at lunchtime? Nah, that's all right. Please? 80 years old, right? What if I say no? You know? Okay, man. So I sit down with her, and she starts reading, talking. Next day I come in, she starts reading and talking. The first time in my life, man, there was hope. I started to see there was hope because what Jesus promised me was a new life. So, what happened then was just unbelievably miraculous. I said, yes, Lord. So, I just told you guys, from high school years to about 32 years old, I got nothing. I've got no hope. I've got no education. I've got no career. I said, yes, Lord. He restored my marriage. He made me a father I thought I would never be. Right? Then he starts to work with me. And I get a job being a steam fitter. I sit in front of this guy at an interview, man, and the guy's like, have you ever welded pipes or been a steam fitter? I go, no, but I did fix a sprinkler once. He goes, you're hired. Right? I'm not kidding you. I do that for 3 years. This guy meets me, says, I really like who you are and what you're about, man. I want you to work for me. I'm starting a new consulting business. I said, all right, dude, all good by me, man. You have no idea where I come from, and these are all gifts from God. And God starts changing me from the inside out. And I start acting like a man that God wanted me to be. I no longer live, man. He's starting to move me. He's starting to change me. And all of a sudden, this job that I had where I went working for this consultant, this company starts struggling, and he says, I really like what you do, man. You want to run it for me? And I said, yeah, that'd be cool. Right? No education. Nothing that I should be there except for my God above saying, I've chosen you. I've used the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. So now I start running this company. It goes from being this little $2-3 million rinky-dink company to today, international, across the world. I'm running this company, man, that's in like 18 different countries. We do great business. I'm running a NASCAR racetrack. There's 2 other businesses. You know, now here's the cool thing, right? I don't stand up here and talk about that because I don't care, other than the fact that it glorifies my God who took the old me, saw him die, and raised me up. He is my hope. He is my strength. He is my fortress. He's everything to me. So when I come in here and talk to you guys, that's what I want to tell you is that, yeah, you got to make choices, man. But before I had him, I didn't have the strength to make choices. Before I had him, I followed what the world told me to do, and I fell, and I was broken like the song said. But when I found him, I said, Lord, be my strength. Be everything I can't be. He lives in me. And all these things that I have, that I've achieved, that I've done, are to his glory. So in those moments, man, when you're sitting there and you're saying, I can't do it, he says, I can. And you turn to him. Something to think about, right? All of us, if you have parents at home who are going through what I went through, pray for them. Because if they can find the Lord,
Away.